Varask moved slowly through the crowded corridors of the neutral space station. The air smelled faintly of recycled oxygen and burnt metal. Traders and mercenaries glanced at him. Some nervously. Some with awe. He was tall, his armor blackened and scratched from countless battles. His eyes, yellow and sharp, scanned the room as if he already knew who would live and who would die. He had a reputation across the outer rim. People whispered his name. The most fearsome alien mercenary alive. Most of the crowd avoided his gaze, except for a few brave traders who had learned long ago that staring at him invited trouble. Yet Varask did not look for fights today. He had arrived with a purpose. Today, he wanted to speak, and when he spoke, even the boldest stopped moving. The station's central hall was packed with humans, aliens, and hybrids of every shape and color. Some carried weapons openly, while others kept small knives hidden under their clothes. Varask stopped near the center, and silence fell. When he finally spoke, his voice was deep, calm, and filled with warning. "Never make humans angry," he said. At first, laughter rippled through the hall. A few alien merchants nudged each other and snickered. Humans, standing in small groups, frowned, but said nothing. The aliens had heard warnings before, but this was different. Varask was not exaggerating. He had faced the best fighters the galaxy had to offer, yet humans were not like anyone he had met before. He took a step forward, and the crowd quieted. His yellow eyes scanned the room, landing on those who had laughed. "I do not speak lightly. I will tell you why humans are dangerous, and I will tell you truthfully what I learned the hard way." The hall grew tense. Even the loudest alien traders felt a shiver run down their spines. Varask began his story. "It was 5 cycles ago," he said. "I was hired to secure a border system claimed by humans. At first, I thought it would be easy. Small fleets, soft ships, and a species that seemed polite and fragile. I was wrong." He described the first time he saw a human vessel up close. It was small compared to his battleships, but the design was clean and simple. Humans did not rely on overwhelming force. They relied on precision, coordination, and something I could not understand at the time. They moved calmly, as if they knew exactly where they would be at every second. Varask remembered the human officer who commanded the fleet. A man named Daniel Brooks. Brooks was quiet, polite, and measured. He offered negotiation at first, even though Varask's legion had already deployed in full force. "I laughed at him," Varask said. "I thought he was weak. I thought humans would surrender if I showed strength. I was wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. The listeners could feel the weight of his admission. He had underestimated humans. "The moment came when I decided to push forward," Varask continued. "We attacked a small human colony, thinking they were defenseless. Daniel Brooks did not shout. He did not panic. He gave orders. Quietly. And his fleet moved like one body. I had never seen such coordination. My soldiers were confused. And the humans did not fight to conquer. They fought to protect." The hall went silent. Even the loudest alien chatter had vanished. Traders, mercenaries, diplomats, all listened, realizing that Varask was telling them something serious. He spoke of civilians, simple men and women who worked in the colony, running farms, shops, and medical stations. When Varask's forces threatened them, he expected fear. Instead, he saw bravery. People hid, yes, but they also fought in small ways, resisting quietly, warning others, and refusing to give up. And that, Varask said, was the first lesson. Humans protect what is theirs, not because they are soldiers, but because they care. I had never faced this before. He paused again, remembering the moment that changed him. His soldiers had captured several human engineers and medics, thinking it would force Brooks to retreat. The team included a young engineer named Laura Bennett and a medic named Chris Turner. They were terrified, yes, but they did not beg. They did not cry out for mercy. They looked at him calmly, with defiance in their eyes. I underestimated them, Varask said. I thought their fear would be enough to break them. It was not. He described how the humans responded. Brooks did not charge recklessly. He did not shout threats. Instead, he planned. Every human ship moved with a purpose, every maneuver calculated. Ambushes, small squads attacking at the right moment, and larger fleets arriving just in time. It was like watching a storm that had been planned in detail. Not chaos. Varask's own forces were caught off guard. They had faced armies larger than humans before, but humans had a stubbornness he had never seen. They refused to abandon their people, they refused to surrender their team, and they never, ever acted out of anger. Their actions were measured, precise, and terrifying. He remembered a human ground squad led by Megan Ortiz, a soldier with calm eyes and a firm voice. She had moved through battlefields with a small team, rescuing civilians while dodging enemy fire. Her team acted as one unit, moving for each other, protecting each other at all times. It was not brute strength that terrified him. It was loyalty, courage, and unity. Varask admitted, finally, that the humans had won not by destroying, but by being relentless in protecting those they cared for. He and his legion had been overwhelmed, not because they lacked weapons, but because they lacked understanding. When I met Daniel Brooks afterward, Varask said, I expected anger, shouting, revenge. What I saw instead was disappointment. He looked at me, and I realized something. Humans do not seek war. They do not seek hatred, but when they are forced, when their people are threatened, they show strength, the likes of which I had never seen. The listeners were quiet. Some aliens shifted nervously. Humans nodded subtly, proud but not boastful. Varask was not finished. I speak today to warn anyone who would try to underestimate humans. They are not cruel. They do not fight without cause. But if you push them too far, if you threaten what they love, you will face a force unlike anything else in the galaxy. I have seen it. I survived it, barely. And I will not face it again. There was a long pause. The hum of the station returned slowly. Traders whispered to each other. Mercenaries glanced at their weapons but thought twice about raising them. Even the diplomats, used to negotiating with dangerous species, felt a weight settle over the hall. Varask looked at the humans. Some were young, some older, but all had the calm confidence he had come to respect. He did not smile. He had no reason to. But he felt something in their presence that he could not name. Respect, maybe. Or perhaps it was fear. Not of him, but of what humans could become if crossed. He turned and moved toward the exit, his heavy boots clanging against the metal floor. The crowd parted for him automatically, and he left the hall with no ceremony, no fanfare. He had said what needed to be said. Outside, the stars stretched across the blackness of space. Varask paused, looking at the distant blue planet that humans called home. He knew that one day, he would return there. Not as a threat, but perhaps as an ally. The lesson had been learned. Humans were not just another species to conquer. They were a force shaped by courage, unity, and care. They were dangerous, yes, but in the best possible way. And Varask, the most feared mercenary alive, would never forget that lesson. The day the humans struck back was quiet at first. Varask watched from the bridge of his flagship as small signals blinked across his console. They were faint, almost easy to ignore, but he knew them instantly. Human vessels, only a handful at first, tiny compared to his fleet, but moving with precision. They did not hesitate, they did not panic, they simply moved, as if the entire galaxy obeyed their timing. Varask had captured a small human research team days before. They were not soldiers. Engineers and medics, some barely 20 cycles old. Laura Bennett, the young engineer, had refused to show fear. Chris Turner, the medic, had treated injured alien civilians while under his watch. They had been calm, defiant, and entirely unbroken. Varask had assumed the humans would retreat if he showed strength. He had been wrong. The first strike came from the outskirts of the system. Human fighters appeared almost silently, darting between asteroids and debris. They targeted supply ships, small vessels meant to resupply Varask's fleet. He thought it was a distraction, a minor annoyance, until he saw how carefully they moved. Each strike hit precisely, never wasted energy, never exposed themselves unnecessarily. They are organized, Varask muttered. They are not reckless. This is deliberate. The human fleet grew steadily. Small ships joining from hidden positions in orbit, from asteroid belts, and even from cloaked hangars on moons. Each movement was calculated, almost as if every human knew where the other would be before the action began. Varask had fought against some of the galaxy's most fearsome armies, but he had never seen such coordination. His ships, numerous as they were, struggled to respond. On the ground, the humans were no less terrifying. Megan Ortiz led a squad through the jungle-like terrain, surrounding the research station where Laura and Chris were held. Varask had thought capturing the humans would force Daniel Brooks to surrender. Instead, it had made the humans fight harder, smarter, and with more focus than he had ever witnessed. Megan's squad moved quietly, communicating with subtle hand signals and eye contact. Every step was measured. Every shot was deliberate. Even when ambushed by Varask's mercenaries, they did not panic. They formed circles, covering each other, retreating only when necessary, and striking back with precision. Varask realized that the humans were not just brave, they were disciplined, patient, and unyielding. He remembered the moment Megan Ortiz disarmed a squad of his soldiers without killing a single one. Using non-lethal energy stunners, she incapacitated the attackers, leaving them alive but unable to interfere. Varask could not believe it. No other species he had faced showed such restraint while still being deadly effective. Meanwhile, Daniel Brooks led the human fleet from orbit. Unlike Varask, he did not roar orders or shout threats. He simply directed, calmly, with the certainty that every ship and pilot would follow. The humans struck at weak points in Varask's supply lines, isolated ships, and command posts. Yet they never overextended. They always protected their own, ensuring no human was left behind. Varask had never seen anything like it. His mercenaries, hardened by countless battles, were beginning to doubt themselves. Orders were shouted and ignored. Officers argued. Fear, not courage, had entered the hearts of the Iron Fang Legion. Humans, with far fewer numbers, were steadily wearing them down. On the research station, Laura and Chris had started working subtly. Laura, the engineer, had discovered weaknesses in the station's energy grid. Chris, the medic, tended to injured humans and aliens alike. They passed small messages to each other and to Megan's approaching squad, giving exact positions, hidden doors, and safe paths. Humans worked together, trusting each other without question. Varask could not stop thinking about it. Even when his soldiers shouted at him, "They are too few. They are weak," he could not believe it. They were not weak. They were clever, coordinated, and patient. Every human acted as part of a single mind. Yet each one moved independently with purpose. The battle escalated when Megan Ortiz and her squad reached the perimeter of the research station. Varask had stationed his most experienced soldiers there, thinking they would crush the humans quickly. He had counted on their aggression to overwhelm the small team. But the humans were not aggressive in the usual sense. They were defensive, tactical, and precise. Megan's squad moved silently, disabling traps and disabling enemies without exposing themselves. Laura and Chris opened doors remotely, creating pathways for their rescuers. Varask watched in disbelief as the humans seemed to anticipate every move he made. Every attempt to corner them failed. Every strike he planned was countered with intelligence and calm. By the time Megan reached the research team, Varask's soldiers were exhausted, disorganized, and terrified. His experienced commanders begged for retreat, knowing that the humans would continue to press forward. Yet they could not understand why the humans were so determined. They were fighting, yes, but not for power or glory. They were fighting to protect the people they had promised to save. When Megan and her team finally reached the captured humans, they moved them quickly and efficiently. Not a single human was left behind. Varas could not believe it. The humans had rescued their own against impossible odds, using courage, intelligence, and patience. And still, they did not seek revenge against his forces. They simply completed the mission and moved to safety. Daniel Brooks' fleet was now in full orbit, securing the system. Varask observed as his own ships were surrounded, cut off from supplies, and forced to retreat. And still, the humans did not destroy everything. They focused on rescuing civilians, maintaining order, and protecting their own. That, Varask realized, was the most terrifying part of all. Humans did not fight for hate or fear. They fought because they cared. He remembered the confrontation afterward. Daniel Brooks approached him personally, unarmed, calm, and measured. Varask expected anger, threats, or punishment. Instead, he saw something he had never seen before: respect, disappointment, and strength without cruelty. "You underestimated us," Daniel said softly. "You should have chosen another path. We do not seek war, but we will defend what matters to us." Varask did not respond. He could not. The words cut deeper than any weapon. Humans did not shout. They did not need to. Their resolve was enough to unbalance the most seasoned mercenary in the galaxy. As Varask retreated with what remained of his forces, he could not help but watch the humans from afar. They did not cheer or celebrate their victory. They returned to their ships, tended to the wounded, and rebuilt what had been damaged. They did not boast. They simply cared, and that care had made them stronger than anyone else he had faced. He replayed the events over and over in his mind. How a handful of humans had resisted an entire legion. How they had protected the weak, moved with purpose, and never lost their discipline. How Daniel Brooks and Megan Ortiz had led with intelligence and courage, never underestimating their enemy, but never overestimating themselves either. Varask realized something else, something terrifying for anyone who thought humans were just another species to fight or conquer. Humans were patient. They did not strike immediately. They waited, observed, and calculated. And when the time came, when those they cared about were threatened, they struck with precision, unity, and unstoppable determination. By the time Varask left the system, he had changed. He no longer saw humans as simple beings to intimidate. He saw them as a force unlike any other, small, fragile in appearance, yet unyielding and relentless when driven by protection and loyalty. Even his soldiers noticed it. They whispered about the humans, about their strange courage and discipline. Many were shaken, unsure if they would ever face humans again. And Varask knew, in his heart, that if he did, he would remember this day for the rest of his life. It was not just a battle that day. It was a lesson that Varask, the most feared mercenary alive, would never forget. Humans were not to be underestimated. Humans were not to be provoked. And humans, when forced to defend what they cared for, were unstoppable. As the stars passed by his viewport, Varask made a silent vow. He would speak of this warning to others, so that no one would repeat his mistake. He would tell them that humans were not just another species to fight. They were something far more dangerous when they were protecting what mattered most. And he would remember every face he had seen that day. Daniel Brooks, Megan Ortiz, Laura Bennett, and Chris Turner. They were not soldiers in the traditional sense. They were ordinary humans, with extraordinary courage. And their courage had defeated him, had defeated his legion, and had changed the way he would see humans forever. Varask knew the galaxy would never forget it either. After the battle, Varask returned to his private quarters on his flagship. The stars outside the viewport seemed calm, but inside, his mind was in turmoil. He had seen humans fight, and he had seen them win against impossible odds. But he had also seen something else, something that unsettled him more than any weapon could. Humans cared. They cared for each other, for the weak, and even for their enemies when they could. That care, Verask realized, was what made them dangerous. He replayed the moments over and over. Daniel Brooks' calm voice, Megan Ortiz, moving through the battlefield with precision, Laura Bennett and Chris Turner quietly helping their team, and even some alien civilians. Every act showed a unity that he had never experienced. Other species fought for power, for glory, or for survival. But humans fought for connection. They fought for people. Not pride. Verask began speaking to his officers and soldiers more often after that. They gathered around him nervously, unsure of what he would say. He told them the same thing over and over. Humans are not to be underestimated. Do not provoke them. Do not threaten them. If you do, you will see a force unlike any other in the galaxy. At first, many of his soldiers laughed. They had fought in hundreds of battles across countless star systems. How could humans, so small and seemingly fragile, be more dangerous than any other species they had faced? But Verask insisted. He told them the story of the captured research team, the precision of the human fleet, and the courage of every human soldier and civilian he had encountered. Slowly, the laughter died. The soldiers began to listen. Verask remembered a moment when Daniel Brooks's fleet had surrounded his remaining ships. There had been no chaos, no shouting. The humans had moved like a single organism, cutting off escape routes without wasting energy, protecting their own at every step. Verask's commanders were panicked, yet the humans never seemed to lose calm. That calm was frightening, but it was also deliberate. Every move, every strike, every decision was made with purpose. In the weeks that followed, Verask traveled from system to system, speaking to those who would listen. Traitors, mercenaries, even minor planetary governments. All were warned of the humans. Some scoffed. But many remembered his words when they later encountered human ships delivering aid, defending weak colonies, or standing up to far larger forces without hesitation. Verask had a personal change as well. He began to study humans, observing them not as enemies but as a species to understand. He learned of their history, their culture, and their philosophy. He discovered that humans thrived not on fear or domination, but on connection, loyalty, and determination. They could be kind, generous, and clever, yet when provoked, they could be unstoppable. He thought about the lessons he had learned from Daniel Brooks and Megan Ortiz. Brooks had shown him that patience and calm were more powerful than anger or aggression. Megan had shown him that courage without recklessness could overcome any threat. Laura Bennett and Chris Turner had shown him that even the weakest-appearing humans could be brave, resourceful, and essential to success. Verask also realized that humans did not fight for revenge. They did not destroy without purpose. Even after defeating his legion, they had not pursued him beyond necessity. They had focused on rebuilding, on helping their captured colleagues, and on protecting civilians. That restraint was alien to Verask. Most species he had faced would have pursued slaughter. But humans acted with purpose and principle. He began to warn others across the galaxy. If you threaten a human or the people they care for, he said, you will face the consequences. They will not stop until those they protect are safe, and you will see what true determination looks like. Those who had fought humans before nodded quietly. Others doubted him, but Verask did not mind. He knew the truth, and he had learned it the hard way. Months later, Verask returned to the neutral station where he had first told his story. This time, he was not the same mercenary. His armor was still black and scarred, but his eyes carried a new understanding. He spoke again to traitors, diplomats, and mercenaries. He told them of the humans' bravery, their intelligence, and their unity. He warned them once more. Do not make humans angry. Do not underestimate them. And never threaten those they care for. Some humans were present this time, quietly listening. They did not boast or react to his words. Verask observed them and realized that they did not need to. Their reputation alone carried weight, because it was built on actions, not threats. Humans had faced impossible odds, protected each other and others, and survived. That was enough. Varask also met Daniel Brooks again. In a diplomatic setting, Brooks offered him cooperation rather than hostility, extending a hand not as a conqueror, but as an ally. Varask hesitated at first, remembering their first encounter. But he accepted. It was not trust in the human sense, but a recognition of their strength and wisdom. He knew that humans would honor their word, and that was more dangerous than any weapon. Through the following cycles, Varask observed humans defending colonies, attacked by pirates, rescuing civilians trapped in hostile systems, and standing up to corrupt leaders. He saw them organize fleets and armies with a clarity and unity unmatched by any other species. Each time, he remembered his first lesson. Humans fight for what they care about. Not for pride, not for conquest, not for fear. They fight because they must protect, and when they do, they are unstoppable. Varask often thought back to Laura Bennett and Chris Turner, to Megan Ortiz and Daniel Brooks. He realized that the humans who seemed ordinary were the ones who showed the greatest courage. They were not superheroes or genetically enhanced soldiers. They were ordinary people with extraordinary determination, cleverness, and heart. That was what made humans the most dangerous and inspiring species he had ever encountered. Even years later, Varask would tell the story to anyone who would listen. Traitors in the Outer Rim, young mercenaries seeking glory, even rival alien factions, they all heard the same warning. Humans were not just another species to fight. They were something far more powerful. A species united by care, courage, and an unbreakable will. And if anyone ever made them angry, the results could be catastrophic. Varask knew that humans would continue to surprise the galaxy. They would rise when others doubted them, protect when others abandoned hope, and succeed when all odds seemed against them. That was their nature, that was their strength, and Varask, the most feared mercenary alive, had learned it firsthand. He also realized that humans did not seek to dominate. Their power came from unity, from intelligence, from patience, and from heart. They were dangerous not because they wanted to be, but because they could not stand by when others suffered. That principle haunted him, and he carried it wherever he went. As he moved from system to system, Varask became a messenger. He warned of human strength, told of their courage, and reminded all who would listen that humans were not to be underestimated. And slowly, the galaxy began to notice. Human fleets arriving in troubled sectors were greeted with hope rather than fear, because word had spread of their bravery and fairness. Even those who had once mocked them learned to be cautious. In private, Varask sometimes watched humans in action, from a safe distance. He saw them rebuild, negotiate, fight when needed, and protect those who could not protect themselves. He watched Daniel Brooks guide fleets, Megan Ortiz lead troops with calm and precision, and engineers like Laura Bennett solve impossible problems under pressure. He saw ordinary humans doing extraordinary things every day. Varask knew that one day, humans would be called upon again to face impossible threats. And when that day came, he knew they would rise, united, fearless, and unstoppable. He had seen it once, he had learned it once, and he would not forget it ever again. The most fearsome mercenary in the galaxy, who had once laughed at the humans, now carried their warning in his heart. If anyone ever crossed them, if anyone ever threatened what humans cared about, the consequences would be severe. He knew it, he had felt it, and he respected it more than any weapon, any strategy, or any enemy he had faced. Varask left the observation deck, looking out at the stars. In the distance, he imagined Earth, home of humans, small and blue among the darkness. He felt a strange sense of awe. He knew that humans would continue to grow, continue to surprise, and continue to inspire. And he also knew that no one, not even the most powerful mercenary, could make them back down when they were protecting what they loved. From that moment on, Varask carried their lesson everywhere. He spoke it, he remembered it, and he lived by it. Humans were not merely survivors. They were protectors, warriors, and a force that no one could fully measure or predict. That was the truth. That was the reason he warned the galaxy. Never make humans angry. Never threaten them. And never underestimate their courage, intelligence, and unity. The galaxy would learn it, slowly but surely. And Verask, the most feared mercenary alive, had made sure the lesson was remembered.